Nerd Skool is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network, powered by Ortho Carolina. Now offering video visits, so you can take control of your orthopedic care from the comfort of your home. Schedule online at orthocarolina.com. Ortho Carolina, you improve.
Hey, fellows. It's the first episode of another season.
Nerds roll.
Oh, my glasses are broken.
This will begin season 2 of Nerd School.
Welcome back to season 2, Nerd High. Glad to have you.
It's gonna be crazy stunts. We're gonna there's gonna be stunts.
Joe's
and
gonna
fireworks.
bring more penis jokes.
There's a lot of penis stuff.
I am a super nerd.
The Nerd School Podcast.
Starring Andy,
Star Spangled Man with a plan.
Maybe I'll try to do a cartwheel.
TBJ,
Welcome. Congratulations. You did dirt. Ta-da. I got no shame. All my exes can tune in. We can have an episode where I compare them to all the Marvel villains. We can do that.
Art Star.
I don't love Wiener.
I'm just trying to make money.
Lord Artemis Prime.
No.
Yeah, my real name is Joe. Did I ever tell you about the time I hung out with DMC at Mertz?
The Nerd School Podcast.
There's like one on stinking Netflix, like A Knight, Knight, where he's a mid-century knight and ends up in like modern day New York. And I'm like, guys.
Isn't that Kate and Leopold? Hugh Jackman is like a colonial dude who travels through or a French dude or something who meets Meg Ryan.
Yeah, it's a genre. I'm like, first of all,
time travel
anyone
rom-com
from medieval times. You didn't bathe. What am I falling in love with?
You fall in love with
thanks.
stank ass.
Right?
Thanks.
No thanks.
So time travel rom-coms is a whole genre?
Sure.
I don't even know if they want to call it a genre, but there are way too many movies in that field that I'm just like.
Isn't there a movie called like Somewhere in Time with like Christopher Reeve, and I don't remember what the plot is with that. But I feel it's time travel, and
there are way too many movies. Well, you have The Time Traveler's Wife. There's so many. It's just.
It's November, right? Something like November Rain or some shit like that.
Is that what
like you send
Andy?
It's December art. I don't know where you're talking.
No, he's talking about your movie.
He's talking about that movie.
Oh, Somewhere in Time, Christopher Reeve.
Christopher Reeve.
Yeah.
I don't know why you said Keanu Reeves.
We were talking about Keanu Reeves earlier. The Lake House. I think it's Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock writing each other letters.
Right. And November Rain.
I don't know if there's a movie called November Rain. That's a Guns N' Roses song.
Art, did you know that The Matrix is softcore sci-fi?
Not softcore. Well,
I don't like where you guys are heading in this conversation. Hardcore and softcore. I'm just gonna put that out now.
Andy says there's hardcore sci-fi and softcore sci-fi. And Matrix would be softcore. I would think it would be hard.
You can take the word core out of there. There's
hardcore,
hard
man.
Sci-fi is a lot more nuts and bolts. Like there's science fiction and why could this science fiction be possible? Kind of like really into the.
So is Star Wars softcore?
No.
Like Star Wars, Star Trek. That's
where
hard?
would that play?
Star Trek would be harder sci-fi, I think. But
Star Trek would be hardcore. Star Wars is softcore.
I dare you to a Star Wars fan.
It's not softcore.
Why can't we say core? Is core? Is that
you're not saying hardcore, softcore, anything?
Penetration.
This is a podcast.
Hardcore art star.
Yeah.
There is it is just hard science fiction. There's no.
Or it's like heavier. It's like deeper into the weeds as far as
deeper, heavier, harder.
Yeah. Okay.
Here's the definition. Would you like, Joe? I will reach.
I just didn't know this was a thing. I didn't know.
Hard science fiction is a category of science fiction characterized by the concern of scientific accuracy and logic.
Okay.
By Star Trek, which is dealing with actual space travel
and logic.
Yeah. And Star Wars, which is a little more fantasy.
Yeah.
Are different. But don't walk up to these fans. You can't.
What'd you say, Art?
Walk up.
Yeah, Art sounded like you're in a can.
Oh, I'm saying, is it high fantasy or low fantasy?
High and low is a little bit less porny.
Neither one is porny. We are supposed to be here to talk about Hawkeye. And so way off a track, like so far down the street.
Well, it all started with us talking about Arthur polishing his body for this podcast, getting ready to.
No, you talked about Art polishing his body. Nobody else talked about that. Art, just so you know, Joe has a real need for you and Nude. I don't know why. You guys are free to have whatever kind of friendship you want to have.
Hey, we're a tag team.
But Joe is
locker room.
obsessed.
There's locker
Joe
room.
is obsessed with you.
Right. To be fair.
Oh boy, Arthur's been watching Letterkenny.
Mm-hmm.
And Andy has to the new episode, the new season. But that's not. We're not here to talk about Letterkenny, even though to be fair, we're here to talk about Hawkeye episodes 3 through 6.
Yes.
Yep.
Shorzy.
Fuck you, Joey.
Fuck you, Shorzy.
Excuse me. I coughed. I apologize for coughing.
Okay.
How dare you on this podcast? So
I just did a quick recap this morning so that I could remember where we were at, where we left off. We left off in episode
3.
Oh no, 3. Yeah, so this is 4, 4, 5, and 6. So I'll just kind of go through the bullet points that I have. They're not all questions, just like sort of recaps and let you guys talk, because it's hard to remember what we talked about, what we didn't.
Yeah, our holiday recording schedule has been a little tough to come by.
Yeah, we've all been busy. Like Andy's busier, and Art. I mean, Art seems to work every day. Tiffany's working 8 jobs, and Andy's working Van Gogh, which is immersive.
And I'll put this out to the listeners. I'll work less jobs if someone just wants to support very low key Disney obsessed traveling lifestyle. My board is not that high. So dear listeners, I grind into less jobs.
Send us $400,000 a month and we will quit our jobs and put out
sacks of money.
Yeah, so many episodes we'll put out.
Yeah, we full time, just one day recording. Boom,
24/7 podcasting. It'll be a live stream for 24 hours. We'll do it.
There are people who do. There's like gamers on Twitch who do that and get plenty of money for just. They're not exciting. They're just awake, and you watch them be awake. Like, this is weird. My kids are like, yeah, he's just awake playing the game for 20. I was like, is he entertaining you? Are there jokes? Is there a dance number? No, they're just watching for 24 hours, play video games. I clearly went to the wrong career field.
Yeah, and they're getting paid.
Yeah.
All right. So sort of towards the beginning of episode 4, we discover the whole thing. The big revelation is that Sloane is a front, which is Jax, the swordsman who ends up being a swordsman's business, is a front for the
Jacques Duquesne.
Tracksuits. Jacques Duquesne, yeah. And
they're fronting money.
They say at this point they say tracksuits and the big guy.
Yeah.
So we introduced the whole tracksuit mafia, which I think is hilarious and brilliant. This isn't in the comics, right? The tracksuit guys isn't, right?
Absolutely are.
Oh, they are. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, so much of
Russian,
this.
They talk like that.
Yeah. Hey, bro, what's going on, bro? Yeah, it's absolutely from the comics. It's it's from a Matt Fraction, David Aja series from 2012. Okay. That kind of revitalized Hawkeye as a character in the comic books, because like the art style was very crisp and clean and interesting and very well thought out and laid out. And
so this is all directly. You said this is all storyline in the comics, right? This whole
a lot. I mean, not everything, but a lot of this, very much of this series. It's absolutely. I'm sure this series was greenlit because that comic series was so well received and like won awards and was so much fun that said we have our Hawkeye series right here. We just need to tweak it a little bit.
That comic series was super popular with the nerd community. Like everybody loved it, and everybody knows it. Is that So
yeah, a lot of people. Yeah,
what's that series called? Is it just Hawkeye?
It's called Hawkeye.
Okay,
but it's from 2012 by writer Matt Fraction and artist David Aja. And David Aja's style, or like, honestly, I have to look into who did the cover work and stuff. But like the logo, like the font of the title of the TV series is directly from the comic book.
Oh, cool. All right.
And a lot of like the credits are inspired by David.
You comic guys recognize that, right? Like Art Star, when you saw the logo, you were right away. You're like, yeah, comic. Yep, that's it. Uh-huh.
If you're familiar with comics in the last decade, you're like, yeah, all right, this is Hawkeye. And then they're basically, but the challenge they had, I think I talked about this before, is taking the MCU version of Hawkeye, who is, married with children and sort of more low-key assassin type, and put him into a story built around the comic book Hawkeye, who's a lot more devil-may-care, fun kind of dude who, he was a carny. He was a low-rent criminal at first, and then kind of turned his life around. And he has a brother named Barney, who's still a criminal. Is the low rent criminal bit Ronin, or is that a different thing? A different thing. Like, like seedy, carny lifestyles. Gotcha. He may or may not have been somehow involved with a circus of crime, which is a whole thing. Oh, gosh. Yeah. We'll get it. Put that aside. Yeah. Go TBJ.
No, just interesting fact that David Aja did as of last year take over Batman Black and White anthology for DC Comics.
Oh, yeah, David Aja doing a Batman series would be pretty good looking.
Yeah.
The colorist on this
side note for Batman.
Matt Hollingsworth is the one who did the coloring on the Hawkeye series.
Oh yeah, coloring, you can't go like the coloring was huge on that too. Like David Aja, would do the pencils, which is you get like the really good thing, but no one talks about colorists. No one talks about letterers. Yeah, and you're gonna have to explain to me why coloring would matter. Like, can't a 6-year-old just color?
No,
otherwise it's all in black and white.
Have you?
But it's just color, right? Like anybody can color with crayons.
When you're coloring things, you have to think about.
I've lost everybody.
How colors show up, color composition.
Is a big thing.
Yeah, what kind of medium you're using? It's not just coloring. Can your 6-year-old color? Yes. Is it going to look well in a comic book? Probably not. That's like saying you went to the museum, you went to the Beckler, and you're like, I can watercolor. I got it.
Yeah. I can.
Yeah, not quite the same, Joe.
Well, I'm the same guy who, like, people get mad at me because, like, I feel like music, like drummers, like everybody gets mad about what I say about drummers. Like a drummer is anybody. Like with Van Halen, when Van Halen, David Lee Roth split, I liked the David Lee Roth stuff because that sounded like Van Halen to me because the singer, he can just get anybody to play the guitar and the drums and the keyboard and everything. And everybody's like, oh, you asshole, shut up. Van Halen's art. I don't know. Anybody can play that drum beat, right? And then everybody gets all mad.
Oh, drummers, there's a reason drummers are so famous. There's a reason there's Slash. There's a reason there's Travis Barker. It's their personality.
Tommy Lee.
On the guitar. There's a reason, like, each of them plays their role very well. Yes, anyone can pick up drumsticks.
Joe, you took drums in elementary school band.
I can't. I can't.
You got no respect for it.
Yeah.
You got
I guess I should because I couldn't do it. I couldn't figure out.
That's my favorite part of most bands.
I couldn't figure out how to do my feet and my hand. Yeah, but what I'm saying is they sound to me. If I close my eyes, I can't tell the drum. Maybe the guy from. Was it Led Zeppelin had an awesome drummer or something, like those ones that are like unbelievable, but like I couldn't tell the difference between Phil Collins drums and I don't know when Phil Collins left whatever band he played drums in. I don't know.
So we're gonna, after we talk about comics books, we're just gonna do a cultural series for
Joe. All right, back to colorists though. Like I don't. All right, what I want somebody to send me an email, like send me the colorist art and see if I can tell any different than any other colorist. Maybe I can't. Maybe you're right, and it is.
it's
special.
coloring is a whole different, like, is a style as well. All right, so
Yeah.
you've got the main artist who generally does, black and white sketches, or black and white. They're not sketches, they're drawings. They're very detailed.
Right.
Then you got the inker that kind of darkens the lines and makes it.
Nobody talks about those inkers either, right?
That's
Who's your
right.
favorite
That's
inker?
right. I don't know the name of any of them, but
they're behind the scenes.
Yeah.
They're like Hawkeye.
So they're like they're like the technical people in theater, like the
kind of
they're putting the key grip and all that shit,
and they're putting together the set. They're putting
There
together
you
like the whole set technician. Like you could write whatever, but if you don't have someone who can competently, like a team who can competently interpret what's on the script page into a visual style. And not everyone, like, you could color with a crayons all you want, but you're not going to get the style. You're not going to get like the color palette. Like a lot of comic book art is sort of like muddy action stuff, whereas David Aja was and the colorist here, Mark Hollingsworth was his name. Matt Hollingsworth.
See,
it's just sort of like, it makes it pop. It makes it brighter. It makes it like Hawkeye's big color is purple. They had a big deal about doing their cool purple suits and stuff. Like Kate Bishop does the little sketch drawing of her proposed Hawkeye costume.
Yeah.
Like that's,
Think of it this way. So just like in art, like if you have a book, right? If you're flipping through the pages, a lot of times, some people don't like to read, right? So a lot of times when you're picking up a book, you're picking it up because the pictures look beautiful.
Yes. Okay.
Most of the time, the writer is not creating those pictures. So then let's say you have the inker, the colorist, and the writer. So the writer comes up with a story, and then maybe the inker or someone else creates a storyboard for them, and then the stories go along with the pictures. So it's like that whole little kid thing where like kids get really interested in books by the pictures, and then they learn the stories based on what the pictures are. So when you're reading a comic book, you're looking at all of the pretty, pretty pictures. And then sometimes like, oh, this writing's pretty fucking good. Like Chip Zdarsky is a really good writer. But then also a lot of the books that he writes, the art is pretty fucking awesome.
Why are these children saying the F word?
Yo, something's wrong with you.
They grew up on Rick and Morty. I don't know.
Okay. So that's cool, and I'm glad. Well, Art, as we talked about in the happy hour, he's got this art background, so that's kind of good that he's kind of talking about that. So maybe, I guess, is there any examples, any of you of looking at a comic and be like, boy, this colorist fucking sucks. I'm never reading that again.
I think.
Go ahead, TBJ.
I was gonna say the beauty of good color composition and creativity is that regular everyday you and I aren't going to notice it, right? Think about commercials you watch. There's somebody in that background who decided exactly what colors, how they were combined, at what width you saw the word show up on the screen. There's someone whose job that is. They aren't getting to know them, but you were attracted to that commercial. It has very little to do with the product, right? A lot has to do with what colors they choose. They also know what colors evoke what emotions. Like there's so much behind color, like the science of color, that you don't have to think about in everyday life.
So maybe it's a thing like you don't hear about unless it's a problem.
Right.
Kind of, yeah. Like it's like
you
you go, if you'll pick up a book and flip through it, and a lot of times if it doesn't speak to you, you're like, I don't like the art in this. You're not going to blame a specific person unless it's Rob Liefeld, who just can't. Just can't.
It's Rob Liefeld.
Yeah.
Poor Rob Liefeld.
No.
What if he's a great guy? Like, what if
he is not?
He's not.
No, he got real mad that someone made one of his characters like his crappy character Shatterstar, who's this schmuck with a sword that's two swords technically, because one sword isn't cool enough, and he had this dumb giant cheerleader top knot thing and this dumb bike helmet hat. He was an awful character, and someone later tried to like sort of, all right, let's take what's here of this sword dude and make him something else, and like basically turned him gay, and he was real mad about that. Like, how dare you make one of my characters gay? I gotta start writing comics again and make him not gay again.
Oh, so there's a little homophobia.
He's just kind of a schmuck, and he's not good at his job.
Learning is a lot of people.
But like, because
people probably like his art, right? There are people that like that.
Yeah, because like early '90s comics, like kind of had a boom, and he was one of the people doing comics at the time. So, you know how you really like Three's Company, and it's probably not that great a show.
What?
Yeah, you know, you watch old stuff you liked when you were a kid, and like, oh, I love this. I love and you know, there's enough there that you're like, okay, I get it, but it's if you look at it critically, you're like,
mm-hmm.
Why did I like that?
Why is it hilarious? So it's, and some people don't have that critical faculty to go back and go, oh, you know what, that Rob Liefeld shit I really liked, like he can't draw feet or ankles, and everyone is misproportioned, and everyone has the same face, because that's extreme. But yeah. So anyway, there's an art team with comics. I mean, there are some artists who can do all of it. Like I'm gonna write it. I'm gonna do my own art. I'm gonna letter it. I'm gonna color it. I'm gonna ink it. Do it all myself. But that's kind of few and far between, especially with the sheer amount of comics that get published on a weekly basis, and the importance of deadlines. Like, all right, we'll divide and conquer the art here. You handle the sketch work, the line work, you do the ink, you do the lettering, you do the coloring, and we'll all make it a chain.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
Joe, you should watch the movie Chasing Amy. It's a Kevin Smith film.
Yeah, I think I've seen that.
So you see, it has a bit now about debating between inking and penciling or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And it stars the mighty Ben Affleck.
Yeah, it's got stupid Ben Affleck in it, so I'm not gonna
stupid. He's not stupid. That's not nice, Joe.
Well, speaking of not nice, we're back to Hawkeye episode 4, and this bit is when Clint and Kate are sort of going back and forth between Clint not being nice to her because she wants to be his partner. He's trying to keep her safe. And we got the Christmas smoothie scene where she comes and she brings the movies. It's like a nice moment of like, wow, that was really nice of you to do. And they're starting to warm to each other. I love that
you call them smoothies. Those were margarita mixes.
Yeah. Well, she calls them frozen.
He says frozen. You got any more of those frozen smoothies? But it was a margarita bag.
I think she said that. And got any more of those frozen things? And then they show him making them, because he's got them taped all to his body, because he's all hurt. And then we have the whole montage of them drinking together and him showing her that little flick thing, which was like cool because it comes in later and it actually saves the day against Kingpin. But that little bit is really cool, like establishing those two as a relationship. It's nice to see a guy and a young girl, and there's not a sexual thing there, for a change. Like it's like a father-daughter type of thing, and a hero, and there's no smarmy weirdness. Anyway, so
it's nice to see in general. Yes,
every once in a while, because you never.
No, really... a lot of the while. Let's see that a lot of the while.
Yeah, let's see it.
Let's make that the norm.
Yeah,
let's make that the norm.
Well, but it's kind of cool. It's like, we're establishing these characters, and just as this whole thing that you guys have said throughout all these things, these Disney shows are this opportunity to take these secondary characters in this big MCU. It's hard to get Hawkeye time when you got Iron Man and Hulk and Captain America and Kate Bishop. It's established as Kate Bishop, and Haley Steinfeld is awesome, I think, and I'm hating Clint Barton less, her Hawkeye less. But
you just had a Hawkeye hate for no reason. So
and then we pretty soon we get to the fight scene on the rooftop where she's got to go and get the watch, and
we pause before you get to the fight thing. Something that I needed to check in with Andy. I think we talked about it a little bit, but we didn't dive deep. Is Clint's wife, because the reason he's going to the watch is because she's like, this is still out here in these streets. At the moment she spoke Russian, I was like, wait, Hold on.
Yeah, I was confused.
I think Andy, you said a little bit. Do we have a full history on her, or is this?
It's up in the air. This is like the big reveal at the end when she gets her at the end of episode 6. So,
yeah.
So I'm going to jump over there. She gets that watch, and it reveals she's Agent 19, which
I missed that completely.
Yeah, or it's barely there on the watch.
It's just on the back of the watch.
I had to go back and like look at a still to see it, but you know the nerds were about it. And in the comics, Hawkeye's wife for a while, or for a long time, was another Avenger named Mockingbird, Bobby Morse. That's not Laura's name, is his wife in this. So that was kind of like a swerve back in Age of Ultron when they first introduced Hawkeye as a family man, because he's not that in the comics. I mean, he was married for a while, but I think by the time Age of Ultron came out, like in the comic books, they like Mockingbird had died for a while and turned out she was kidnapped by Skrulls or something, and then came back and then was not interested in resuming their married life or something like that.
Because they was actually about to get divorced before this all happened, so their marriage just started to crumble.
But
I just was curious because without going all the way to 6, that's the first scene where there has been talks of her, like how they met, and there are 2 things that happen before they get to the rooftop. When Clint is explaining to Kate, he's getting the watch from he doesn't say my wife, because he's trying to keep her business quiet, but he says a friend, and if this watch was found, that would reveal more about this friend, and that could be trouble.
Right.
And he said, getting it for his wife. Yeah.
Yeah. Mockingbird is very much a SHIELD agent in the comics. And, you know, she's on a similar power level. Like, she's like really kick-ass fighter with batons and stuff. And what makes this complicated is that they already introduced this character on the Agents of SHIELD show as a completely different, that nothing to do with Hawkeye. Played by Adrian Palicki, who is on the Orville and who actually starred in a failed Wonder Woman TV series pilot a while back.
She's also from Toledo, Ohio.
That's
where
correct.
Andy and I are
Joe
from.
with the random facts.
Well, that's where we're from, so she's our hometown gal. She went to Whitmer High School, home of the.
But Lord help you,
Whitmer.
But I think it's interesting because in episode 1 through 3, we talked about like. We kept saying, man, she's very understanding for a wife.
Yeah.
And that
he is leaving. And then there's a moment where then she starts speaking Russian to like shield out the kids from the conversation. I was like, okay, so she's more than understanding. And the fact that she's able to pull information, you're like, I don't remember her much, but now I'm paying attention to his wife.
Right. So yeah, I like that they're developing that a little bit. Like, she's not just, I am a wife that takes care of the kids in this house for you, so you can go avenge. Like, Mockingbird is an Avenger, on her own right in the comics, and she's, you know, pretty tough and accomplished. Although her like one of her original costumes had like one of these sort of old school Catwoman eye masks and like really flowy sleeves, but like then no pants. It's
so is there nerd hubbub and hullabaloo and conjecture that she is going to be her own, like she's going to be later a superhero in the MCU or not?
Not necessarily. I mean, there's the hubbub is all like, all right, how are they going to reconcile this being Mockingbird, Agent 19, with the Agents of SHIELD thing? Are they ever going to acknowledge that Agents of SHIELD
we know they're not
canon? Or
you know what I love?
We don't know for sure. Like, this is the first time this and the recent Spider-Man movie are the first time the Netflix Marvel series have been acknowledged by the MCU proper.
Oh, okay, right.
So and Kevin Feige has said some stuff about going, you know, there are fans of the Agents of SHIELD show. Go ahead, Art. Oh, was you raising the roof about Agents of SHIELD? I thought you were raising your hand to talk.
Can I say this?
I'm putting myself in the queue.
Okay. But I think the rumor, or like it's going to probably be established that since Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was so nuts and went through time travel and alternate dimensions and stuff on its own without being acknowledged by the MCU, it's going to fit right into the whole Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness movie that's coming out next year, building on Spider-Man No Way Home, which just came out and is pretty fascinating. So that's what the nerds are all about. Like,
yeah,
right,
that's the only thing I heard. Yeah, was like, are we just going to pretend that these two worlds don't exist separately?
But so they probably, it's another timeline, and although it followed the MCU timeline really closely for a while at the beginning, but a lot of stuff does. I mean, I'm always kind of fascinated with alternate timelines in that everything's the same except, oh, this guy made this other choice, and then that. Like,
it's spread off into
how many alternate timelines are fucking almost identical until Hawkeye says, I'm going to shoot this guy instead of that guy, or something like that.
We learned that during Loki, there's a million trillion timelines.
That's right.
With one thing. Thanks, Loki, for teaching us.
Yes.
The more you know.
Yep, that's right. So so that I like that they're developing Laura into more of a character rather than just I'll hold down the house while you go superhero, buddy.
Well,
exactly.
Cool.
For feminism's sake.
Yeah. So she's got like a history. It makes sense if she used to be a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent herself, and she was like, all right, you know what? I'm sick of this. Let's dial it back, and I let's have a goddamn family and a normal life.
20% off there, bud.
Oh, speaking of the feminism thing, like I was looking through this as I was, recapping this. A lot of these were directed by Bert and Birdie. Are these people you guys know? They're two female directors that work together a lot, Bert and Birdie. I never heard of them.
I don't
They
either.
directed like 4 out of the 6 of these episodes, I think, or 3 out of 6. But they didn't direct all of them. So the Reese Johnson or something like that, Rice Johnson. I was looking at all that just as I was looking through. And then a lot of these writers were women. In fact, the Ronin episode, I had to stop and look who wrote that, because I hate to jump way into this. Maybe we'll get to it later, but that macaroni scene was fucking genius and hilarious. I've watched like 3 times now. Just so well written and so well acted by those two. I mean, I can't say enough about Yelena and Kate together. Like their whole thing, that needs to be the show going forward. It needs to be just those two.
So what I hear you saying is a women-led.
Yes. It needs to be directed.
Fantastic.
Yes. Directed by Bert and Birdie. It needs to be written by, I got her name here. The girl who wrote.
If only the rest of the world caught up to that theory of how women led things.
Jenna Noel Frazier, I think, probably wrote that scene. I don't know if she just wrote the whole, but she's credited as the writer. She's not looked her up online. She hasn't written a whole lot of things, but I think I'm a fan. I'm trying to learn to follow writers instead of just like directors and actors, whatever, too, to see like, can I see a thread? Like, will I like her work like in movies? Because people don't do that. People don't look at who wrote episodes of shows, but I don't know. I'm just like, the more I work on writing things and things, like I don't know. So I hope she wrote that. I mean, I'm guessing she wrote that macaroni scene. I mean, was it all improvised by? Is it the actresses who plays Elena? What's her name? She's a famous actress.
Florence Pugh.
She's fucking fabulous. Kate Haley Steinfeld is fabulous. The writing on that episode. It was directed by Bert and Birdie. I don't know. So I don't know. I'm going to look at what they do. So these women, this is a women-led show, basically. I mean, it's awesome. Like that's who's, So yes, you're right, DBJ.
Did we talk about the Black Widow movie?
Yeah, I'm about to say the macaroni.
Florence Pugh. Florence Pugh's character
in
debuted in that.
Yeah, we didn't do we didn't do the new movies. We're do just the new shows.
We haven't done the new movies to keep Joe's brain from frying out of order all the way.
It is hard watching Cat, Winter Soldier, and this at the same time, but it's good in some ways, I think. I don't know. Anyway, but let's get back to the movie real quick. So,
you're back to the fight scene,
the show.
Which is women with women.
Yeah, so that badass fight scene where we don't know it's Elena until they take her mask off. And she is, oh shoot, I just realized I can move these bullet points. And so they may not be in order now because I can move. Oh, sorry, I got this.
Good job, idiot.
Anyway,
Joe got distracted.
So Yelena shows up and he's like, somebody hired a Black Widow. And so I kind of went down a path on my own, just like, wait a minute. Yelena, is she from the comics? Which I was going to ask you, and Andy will go on a 20-minute diatribe about that. But she is, I've discovered, and she's Black Widow after the first Black Widow. So there's multiple. And then I looked at Black Widow. There's multiple Black Widows. And I know you talked about clairvoyant at one point on Wikipedia. There's clairvoyant as a Black Widow.
That was the original golden age back from the 40s era. Was Claire? She was more mystical, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, Yelena Belova was introduced 1999, and she was pretty much a villain at first. Like, what if Black Widow had to deal with an evil version of herself,
which is kind of what they're doing here, right? I mean, and what they did in Black Widow, sort of.
Nah, they try to change it around. But it's more like in that they've kind of softened Yelena Belova for the film, I guess. I haven't followed her too closely in the comics, but I remember like she was straight on supervillain for a while. She was like combined with some other entity and was in AIM's evil entourage or ruling council. I had a name. I don't remember, but they're making her a lot more. This is someone else who's been through the Red Room with Black Widow, and I mean, they did kind of fight each other a bit, but not that seriously
in the comics.
In the comics, they were very serious about it, and she would like Yelena was very dark and obsessive. But in this, like, all right, let's have a more fun Black Widow, I guess.
I love that she's fun. The macaroni scene, gosh, I can't tell you enough. So we see her go into the blip, and I feel like I could be wrong. This seems like, at least from where we are in the, I guess, I don't know. It feels like it's the first time we really see the blip from the people who disappeared perspective.
You get a little bit of it from
WandaVision.
Yeah. Remember?
Yeah.
Monica Rambeau.
Yeah.
You saw her come out of the blip at the hospital.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's when when they were like everybody.
But we see it from her perspective because things are so we get a little bit of it through Monica.
Yeah.
It just felt like it was real time.
Yeah.
But can we rewind to the roof scene? Because this is my favorite part in fighting. There's a point. First of all the women are badass.
Yes.
In that scene. But there's a point where Clint is down. Kate, is being there helpful. And then she aims. And Black Widow goes, just so slightly, ever so slightly. Like, no, ma'am. That for me, listen, you can tell by all the things I love in this episode, it's subtleties, all the subtle things.
Yes.
Just these big moments. And TBJ is like, here are all the subtle moments that are magical. Because that for me established, I'm not here to hurt you. This isn't about you. You don't want to do this with me. And then goodbye. And propels off a roof. So I'm sorry, I just wanted to take it back to that. I'm gonna keep pausing for all the subtle scenes.
That whole scene is so awesome too. Like with the zip line and the kick-ass fighting. Yeah,
there's so much in the little bits in this series for me. That blows my mind or makes me so happy.
I think just how much you love these shows, Andy. Andy, because not Andy, Joe.
Yeah,
okay.
We all look the same.
But the fact of like, here's a guy with a bow and arrow, and you're like sucking this shit up like it's delicious.
But that's just it. But that's just it. It's not him that I care about. It's like like Kate kicks ass, Yelena kicks ass.
I think you loving all of the. I think you have a newfound respect for Clint.
Maybe.
You do.
Maybe. Well, yes. There's
onto your hate just to hold on to your haterism.
Well, I mean, still, guys with bow and arrows are stupid, but the trick arrows help. And I got a couple points in here that I'll get to that I'll tell you what has won me over too. But
all guys with bow and arrows suck. Is this your stance?
I don't know, just bow and arrow. It's just a fucking bow and arrow. You got all this other cool shit. And he's gonna shoot something with an arrow.
Can you shoot a bow and arrow, Joe?
No.
Okay. Here, I'm gonna say it live. We're gonna take a trip to camp. My job has camp. I won't say my day job on the podcast because I get in trouble sometimes. We're gonna go, and there's an archery place there, and I'm going to record you attempting the bow.
I can't do it.
And then I'm gonna have some of the staff who were hella good at this shoot the bow. And I want you to then tell me after that how stupid people with nails are when you're standing stationary and just have to shoot straight and suck versus when you're battling shit out
and jumping off of a building and shooting. I will say
have to be accurate.
The no look.
My daughter went to Ren Fest and with a friend, and she came back and said, "I shot a bow with an arrow and I got a bullseye." So maybe she's Kate Bishop.
Yeah.
Or Katniss. She could be Katniss.
Or Katniss, that's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
But Joe, I'm putting this out here now to change Joe's mind or to prove him wrong. We are going to take a field trip, guys, on whenever all of us are off at one time.
That'll never happen.
And this is a regular camp, not a fish camp.
No, it's an actual camp location. And Joe's going to be charged with shooting the bow. And I want you to bring your daughter because I want her to witness this.
All right. Back to the show. Kingpin, we see at the end of, I think, this first episode, this episode 4, Kingpin on the little picture. And that's when I bumped into Art at work. I was like, hey, was that Vincent D'Onofrio Kingpin, or could it be somebody else? He was like, that's Vincent D'Onofrio. You can see him in the credits. Idiot, he said.
But yeah, that picture.
Did Art call you an idiot?
No, he didn't.
That picture did not look like Vincent D'Onofrio. But
that's why I thought it might not be him. But
yeah.
See, it's one of those things like Marvel wouldn't do that big of a swerve where they would sit there and show you what you thought was a grainy picture of Vincent D'Onofrio and then have him in the credits of said episode and it not be him.
Yeah. I didn't look at the credits that closely.
What I always say. What do I always say?
Listen,
look at the credits.
It's always telling you to go through the credits.
Look through the credits.
Hint of everything.
Yeah, he's a.
I'll go to the credits after I see the story unfold.
And basically, what you two did was prove my point where a lot of people don't like to read; they just like to see the pictures.
Fair enough.
That's it. Not saying you guys are idiots or anything, you know.
But just for reference, the Kingpin was the leader of the Tracksuit Mafia in that comic series as well.
Oh, okay.
So Hawkeye never really been. Hawkeye didn't get a lot of solo comics in general. So it was interesting pairing up Hawkeye with Kingpin, who was I just saw an article on sci-fi.com that referred to Kingpin as Marvel's street level Thanos, as in that's how enigmatic and untouchable and powerful he is on the the level of organized crime.
Okay.
Well, they were making him like that, like the big guy's going to get involved. Then him sitting saying in the Ronin episode, they need to know that this city is mine. Like all of this shit that just happened, and you have this mob, basically a mob boss, talking like nothing in the world can stop him.
According to him, nothing could. So.
And then we see it. He gets hit by a car. Everything
he's like
Kate Bishop's throwing
you shot
everything
an arrow?
at him.
Yeah, nothing matters.
In the comics, they as big as Kingpin is usually drawn or portrayed in the comics, mostly all of his body is supposed to be like muscle. I think I read something where they said when she shot the arrow, it hit his sternum, and it's like the densest bone in the body, and that's why he was able to just brush it off and keep going. And then he gets hit by the car. It's because he's supposed to be this really low, really just I don't want to say immovable force like the Juggernaut, but his body is supposed to be that fit and muscly. Oh yeah, I said muscly. That he could withstand certain things like that. Which is why, as we get in the reveal of and there was also the fact that they showed him having all of these, things happening to him, set up what happens in episode 6. Just because it's you're not going to give us. I mean, they could, but I don't think they would just give us Vincent D'Onofrio only to take him away.
Right, and Kingpin's like a man mountain which is not to be confused with Man Mountain Marco, who is another comic book character from the 60s that Stan Lee created. And he's just a big, giant dude. But he's, yeah, it's the same, like what happened. I mean, this is jumping to the end. I don't know if you want to,
let's jump to the end, because part of what, I mean, we'll go back chronologically, but like you said, you don't think they're taking him away, even though at the very end of episode 6, they cut away and we heard a gunshot, and we know Maya's got a gun.
Like in the comics, there's almost like a panel in the comics where it's like the exact same scene, where Echo has the gun pointed at his forehead, shoots him. Then there's a couple of panels later, you see Kingpin alive and well, except now he just has his eyes bandaged. So it's like,
he comes away blinded in the comic series because you can't kill off a major character like Kingpin.
So we think that's what's going to happen. Like season 2 will be that,
which would be interesting.
There's an obvious reason they didn't show the actual shooting.
Yes,
right.
We got to see the actual death happening. There's a reason we didn't.
Like even before that part, the part when Kate does the thing and the arrows shock him or electrocute him or whatever, and when they go, but like, oh, Kingpin's gone. Right then and there, I thought that was just going to be the end of Kingpin's scene right there. They're like, oh well, where did he go? It's almost at that. But then boom, you see, and Echo, I guess, trying to close that part of the show up.
Well, I think they really needed a show. They needed Maya to become Echo and like to be a hero, like to really, even after she fought that other guy, I think they needed to really just show her trajectory as being, because isn't she a young Avenger or something too? Or
she could be. She was sort of like they introduced, like the Echo story is separate from the Hawkeye story for the most part. Echo's life is, just like in this, Kingpin had her father killed, didn't tell her, and like kind of raised her as like honoring his father's last request was to raise her as his daughter, which seems to be what he did. So that's why she's like just follows him blindly, and then until she finds out the truth. And she does that. She shoots him, and then he's
so that whole later. Echo bit and Ronin bit wasn't in the Hawkeye comic.
Ronin came later for Echo. Echo had a whole arc where she was, like in love with Daredevil, and they had a thing. She's got photographic reflexes, so she can watch Daredevil and Bullseye fight, and was able to instantly copy how well they could fight. She watched someone play piano, and then she was able to replicate it perfectly, even though she can't hear anything. She like concert level pianist, because she can just see stuff and translate it into action.
But again, they're taking multiple different comics and melting them into this MCU, which is exciting for nerds, because it wouldn't be as exciting if they just did exact copies of the comics, right? Like that would just be, so what? You're just making exact copies. You're melding, you're building it.
Depends on the nerd you talk to. I'm sure like a lot of nerds are like, well, that's not faithful enough to the comics, but
there'll always be those nerds.
Yeah, the MCU has crafted a really good balancing act between being faithful enough to the spirit of the comics they're drawing from, while sort of adapting their stories into their own thing, so it doesn't bother nerds as much. It's like, all right, I can see the character I love, and he's doing the things he would do, as long as you're true to the characters and you're taking enough elements from the books to make us happy without like treating the novel as a script that you can't deviate from. Most nerds are happy with that, but they're always going to be like, I can't believe they made that change in the story. That's absurd.
Yes, and those people need to get life.
What I love about things like this is just the fact that like it's introducing, characters to the masses, and not like they give us, nerd shit or MacGuffins and shit like that. But it's like someone like a fledgling nerd like Joe. It's like, oh, who's this? Who's this? Why is this? Like, we go back to the whole Mockingbird thing. It's like, Marvel creates, like some of these MCU movies and shows, they create characters or they pull characters from the multiverse, put them in. I guess I'm one. I think I've seen their timeline listed as 199, like 4 nines or some shit like that. So you have like the Marvel 616, which is like the main comic story, but then you also have like the MCU, which is also like a timeline where, you know, we talk about like Mockingbird. Like I've read the like, you know, they have her as Agent 19. Then, you know, Agent 19 on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you know, she was involved with Lance Hunter. And it's like, so they had this kind of vibe, sort of how Clint and Mockingbird did like in the comics, even though Lance Hunter and Mockingbird were married in the comics. But then it was also saying like how Laura Barton, you know, could be Mockingbird. And then Mockingbird could not just necessarily be just like her playing like Mockingbird and then a different version of Mockingbird. But Mockingbird could possibly be like Black Widows, where you have like a multiple of people being Mockingbirds because they're like I said, like they're like Black Widows. But it's like one of those things where it's like, if you don't read the comics and if someone says like Agent 19 is Mockingbird, you're going to make it seem like, oh, Laura Barton is Mockingbird. But it's also like, if she wasn't an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., how do we know she's not Bobby Morris? They could have just changed her name to Laura Barton.
Well, all the,
or
I mean,
it could have just
multiple, there's multiple Captain Americas, there's multiple Iron Men, there's, right?
There's a legacy, like it could be like 007, like Agent 19 retired, there's a new Agent 19 or something like that.
Yeah.
Possibly. And yeah, so there's legacy issues, you know, Captain America's passing the mantle to Sam, Iron Heart is showing up eventually. Hawkeye looks to be about ready to go. All right, Kate Bishop, you can take over the avenging part. I'm going to go be with my family at Christmas.
I'm going to actually pay attention to my kids.
Yeah.
I mean, because 007, Joey Turner-Smith was 007 until they reinstated Daniel Craig as 007.
I don't know. I haven't watched any James Bond since
007 has never been my jam.
Well, that was a big issue with 007 and the black woman at that. So I mean, like, it's like for so long, 007 was always associated with James Bond. You know,
so 007 is a different title. So yeah, like one of the last movies they introduced, like James Bond was on the outs, so 007 was there was a new 007.
All right, enough of this 007 bullshit. Let's get back to the. I have a question.
You know what it sounds like, Joe? It sounds like, you know, you're not that big of a feminist as you try to portray.
What does 007 have to do with? Aren't they womenizing, misogynists?
Listen,
very early, yeah.
We were saying how 007 was made a woman, a black woman at that, and you were like, enough of this 007 bullshit.
Oh, I missed that bit. Sorry, I didn't hear you say that.
Your timing was horrible.
Yes. Oh, I didn't even hear that.
Old school James Bond movies were hella disrespectful for women.
Yeah.
Wait, to adjust.
You're saying now they have a 007 that's an African American woman?
Yeah.
In the movies?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not.
Or comics. Is this a comic?
Movies.
It's in the movie, but like James Bond is separate from 007. So they just put a new 007 in to sort of people started talking about recap. Like the next James Bond should be Idris Elba or something like that. There was a lot of talk about like maybe.
Oh wait, I did hear Idris Elba was going to be, right? Or not? Is that something
they haven't
not confirmed, but that's what a lot of people would like to see and are guessing.
Well, I've never been a James Bond. I don't know anything about any of that, so that's why I'm anything to do with what you said. Because I had a question about halfway through your last thing, Art. I had a question that I was just kind of earmarking, so I was just trying to remember that the whole time. So I'm not that smart. I can only concentrate on one thing at a time. Swordsman. Because you were talking about all these characters they're introducing and how they're weaving them in. So I wanted to ask about Swordsman because I thought Swordsman was a villain. And this whole thing surprised me when he ends up being good and he's helping fight and she's apologizing to him and she's his stepdad. But that's not in the comics, right? Swordsman's not related at all to Kate Bishop in the comics, or is he?
No, I don't think so. Guy? But he started out as a villain. Like he was a carny with Clint Barton.
Oh, right.
He
kind
of trained him.
You told me that.
Yeah.
You guys did say that. Yeah.
But like he's been a villain and a hero, and
Okay.
so like he was an Avenger for a while, and there and to the point where enough happened that you remember you haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy yet.
It's next though. It's after
not.
Cap.
Yeah. Like in the comics, Swordsman is at some point married to Mantis, who is introduced in Guardians 2. Which with like some crazy alien lady who gives birth to this tree guy. There's a lot of weird shit going on in comics, and Swordsman is one of like the only Avengers they killed off and kept dead for a long time.
Oh, okay.
But so it's kind of interesting that they introduced him at all. I get like it's cool that they introduced him in the Hawkeye series, but I guess they're kind of transferring him to be more of someone who can be a mentor to Kate as opposed to having been a carny with Hawkeye back in the day.
Okay.
I think so. I like that storyline of the entire time her being like, this dude is shady. And really he is just a rich dude who didn't have to work. Like, again, because I like all the small things in these scenes. Him arguing with his cousin when he gets out of jail, the little kid cousin.
Yeah.
I was in your wine collection. He was like, but I'm out.
Remember that time you wet your pants?
Yeah. That was hilarious.
It was a great reminder. And even when he was getting arrested, he was like, this is a mistake. I have never worked a day in my life. Like, it's not what I do. It's all these reminders that he really is just this dude who has all this money. And what does he do with his money? He buys swords and he does all these things for no reason other than he has all this money and he's just well trained at it. But it's great to see all of that in him because we spent the first, few episodes just going something shady. And it turns out he's not the shady one in the relationship, right?
Yeah.
And it makes you look back on every time she tried to say something to her mom. And her mom's like, shh. Because you were like, moms can't be that stupid, but it explains so much.
Yeah.
So much. But I love that we saw him just being like a dude. And then when the LARPers are like, you should hang with us. And he was like, it sounds very common. Like he's just a rich dude, who could probably be a jerk, but is not all the time.
Well, and that's what I got kind of around here is when we find out that Eleanor framed Jack and all this. And then we get the macaroni scene, which I was talking about, which is fucking genius. Like, I mean, go back and watch that macaroni scene. So funny. Both of them together. Those two, I'm telling you, that is the show. Like, that needs to be more of those two.
You only have one fork. I'm one person.
I'm one person. It's like, oh, and just her just saying, oh, macaroni, I got hungry. You took forever. And when she puts the hot sauce in it, oh, I love hot sauce. I'm only in New York. This is my first time in New York. Like, she's so funny and playful, but also this badass Russian. And then just the flirting with them, flirting with like, you would have killed me right away. Yes, I would have. Oh, yes, I would have killed you immediately. And Kate Bishop. And it's just those two together like that. Macaroni scene, I just kept going, yes.
It's not even just a macaroni scene, it's that fight scene later.
The fight scene later. The fight scene later, forget about it. The elevator thing, when they're and they're fighting and she rips off her. Did you plan that? Yes, I did. Okay, no, I didn't. And then the part when Kate Bishop was like, stop making me like you. Like, that's just so. Yeah. Oh, those two all day, every day. Those two. That's all I want.
The witty banter wins.
Please, a show with those two would be so great. I don't know. Give them whatever they want. That needs to be the show. Oh my God, I can't say it enough.
My guess is they're like when the new iteration of Avengers rises, because it feels like there's not really an operating Avengers team right now.
Yeah.
After Endgame, everything was destroyed and the whole compound is destroyed and it's been looted for the auction house and all that stuff.
Yeah.
When the next team rises, it's going to include both of those two.
Well, yeah. Well, she's the new Black Widow, right? Yelena is, and then we got the new Hawkeye. I mean, I liked old Black Widow. Don't get me wrong; she's fucking fabulous. But I love Yelena. Those two. Oh my gosh, it's gonna be great. I can't wait now. Like, they're really doing. I don't know. For a long time, when you kept talking about the Young Avengers are coming, the next is gonna be the Young Avengers. I kept thinking, oh, this is giving me a Coy and Vance vibe. which is like the new
Coy and Vance, the replacement Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah, so back in the day in the 70s, the Dukes and Hazzard went on strike or something, and then they had
like contract dispute, so they replaced with identical chumps, except they switched the colors of the shirt that they wore, and then they were their cousins, Coy and Vance Duke, who kind of tanked the whole show.
Yeah, and they were lame as hell. We thought it was lame as hell, but now this is a good segue back to something we talked about before. You go back to something you loved as a kid and you rewatch, like, oh, this didn't work. This is problematic. Oh, Confederate flag on their car. You know, like this is a terrible.
Hazardous, hella problematic.
Yeah. It just wasn't good. But when we were kids, we didn't know what that was, and they were just guys that ran away from the police and made moonshine or whatever. But
they were guys that jumped cars over creeks.
Yeah,
that was what we wanted. We wanted our mom to jump station wagons over trains. We wanted like yeehaw. That's what we were there for.
Yeah. So but when you look back, that's hella problematic as
just a bunch of good old boys.
Yeah, a bunch of good old boys. That's right. Yeah.
Never meaning no harm.
Yeah.
Harm to you.
Yeah, true.
Anyway, so we're coming around the home stretch here. So when we get to the arrow making montage where she's like, oh, we need more arrows. One thing I did skip though, when they meet with the LARPers and they're making the uniforms, I saw on IMDb in the background, you can hear the Star Wars Christmas special is playing in the background.
When Clint's walking the grill department, you hear Christmas is here from a Charlie Brown Christmas. Like music in this, like the way they set up the music in these Marvel shows, is I guess like when I watched it again, when I watched Rogers the musical bit, I didn't hate it as much as I did in the beginning. But like just watching these movies, so like their music, everything's keyed into the dramatic tones of the show or the moment sometimes. So
well, like, and what better way to establish super nerds as LARPers than the Star Wars Christmas special in the background, which is notoriously. Anyway, I saw that. I didn't catch that myself by the time I didn't IMDb. But the arrow making is another montage where they're making cool things. She's labeling them, and like that was a cool that made me like Hawkeye a little bit more because he's not just a dumbass shooting arrows. Like he's like Iron Man.
He's never a dumbass.
Well, yeah. I mean, the comics with the H on his head and the stupid purple mask.
You can't blame him for that. It's not like the character decided that was his look. What you're hating on is his lack of character development.
I guess just in general with all the Avengers, it's like, all these cool Avengers and then a fucking guy shooting arrows. You know, same thing with
which makes him more badass because he's just a guy shooting arrows and holding his own with the goddamn Avengers. Like that.
Whoa.
The genius.
Did you miss the part where Kate was talking to him while he was doing the arrow building and everything, where she was sitting there saying how, you know, he jumped off, like he did all these things, and he was basically just a normal guy? Joe, come on.
That's what I'm saying. That scene helped her explaining her perspective, and when they showed at the beginning her as a little girl watching him, that helped me have more fondness.
But you didn't get that when you're watching, like when we're watching Avengers, and you're thinking to yourself.
No, when I watch the first Avengers, like fucking that dumb guy or the dumb face.
But for me, that's why I like him. Same reason I like, you know, my favorite character of all time. They're just regular dudes. They're dudes who need some therapy, who need to process some shit, but they're also out here doing the damn thing with no magical power.
Well, I think Jeremy Renner was part of the problem for me. Like I just
like Jeremy Renner.
Like it's just he's got a dumb face.
Our apologies to Jeremy Renner. Joe does not speak on behalf of all of Nerd School.
There is a line I think you'll like when we get to Age of Ultron, where Hawkeye gives kind of a pep talk to Wanda and says, "Look, we're fighting an army of robots, and I have a bow and arrow."
Yes, that's the whole thing of it.
But I'm going to be out there. If you step out that door to fight, you're an Avenger. And,
but that's the beauty of it, Joe. I think you My favorite superheroes are the ones with no.
Yeah, you love Batman so much. I think he's kind of a douche. So, but that's.
I mean, he is a rich, privileged kind of guy, but I like him because he is a regular guy
that wears stupid
special powers other than
bat
ears.
Money.
Side note, I watched the preview for the new Batman, and I'm very mad at who did hair and costumes for that. Because Robert Pattinson's hairdo and that stupid thing, I was like, who the
looks disgusting. Looks disgusting.
What is that look?
I'm
what
so
is
mad.
That
like,
look?
It's horrible. I guess they're trying to make him look really tortured or something. I'm like, this dude's gonna ruin his like I'm not gonna be able to watch this movie because I'll be looking at his hair all of the time. You know,
I was the whole entire preview. I was like, what the fudge?
Oh, no.
Why would you do? Who was in charge of hair and makeup on this film? They need to be fired. Meanwhile, Zoe Kravitz looks like a goddamn goddess, as she should. But you got Robert Pattinson over here looking like a homely dude who doesn't know how to groom himself properly. Like, what the fudge? He's got a lot of money. I'm sure he can groom well.
Well, not to defend. Yeah, I don't like his hair either, but it looks to be really focusing on Batman as a deranged sort of hyper violent guy with problems. So this could be before he really Bruce Wayne's it up. And
why is it supposed to be like a year zero kind of version of Batman? That's why.
Oh God, I really hope the storyline pulls through because I am so livid as the Queen of Batman that this fool. I'm so, and I'm sure there's a way to show disheveled. Like, I just want to have a conversation with the artist because there's a way to show disheveled without what we saw. Like, what we saw was tragic. Like, and I lost my parents. Tragic. Like, is that? It was not cool. Sorry, Joe. Back to Hawkeye. But
speaking of tragic,
so you think Jeremy Renner's dumb face ruined Hawkeye for you? Yeah, she's letting the hairdo destroy a Batman movie for her right now.
Before it's even out, you know,
I'm judging
already judging.
But based on hair, but also because I actually enjoy that character. Joe, you just hate Hawkeye for no reason.
Well, I hate all just to be safe, just to be fair. I hate all bow and arrow guys. Like the Arrow guy, Green Arrow, is even dumber. Robin Hood,
Robin was Robin the Rich for the poor.
I do like that. I like that Robin Hood did that, but did he have to wear a stupid green outfit and have a?
Did something happen to you in childhood when you were around with a bow and arrow? Like,
probably.
Traumatic. Andy, help us out. What happened to Joe?
I recall nothing about archery.
Was he at like an archery competition made fun of bad?
I can't do it. Like, I've never been able to figure that out. So I hate it all. Maybe
I will tell you, it is not easy.
I know it's not easy. I can't do it.
A couple years ago, and it is hella hard. But I've also met some teenage girls who are just so goddamn good at that stuff. Like, are you the madness? Do we need to talk? Can you teach me your ways?
Teenage girls are the future. Teenage girls are the future.
As we see by the women-led leadership of Hawkeye. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from now on, everything. Now, I've been saying this for a long time. All of our leadership in American government needs to be just all women for like 20 years. Like, just men aren't allowed to run for 20 years, and then we'll get the ship, and then we can equal everything out. And now I'm thinking all superhero shows should be written and directed by all women for just 10 years, 20 years. Anyway, but back to the show. So we talked about the Kate and the Yelena elevator thing and that whole fight, that whole scene of them fighting is hilarious. And also they're not trying to hurt each other, but and you did very good with that. Oh, with the way you slammed the body. Like, that was just so great. Yeah. We already talked about that, but so a couple things towards the end, the big Times Square, or not Times Square, but the Rockefeller Center tree thing. I saw somebody online saying, this is why Hawkeye fucking sucks. You just when you think he's great, he can't fucking figure out how to get out of a tree. That's Hawkeye. He's just a fucking guy.
He can get tangled up in situations.
I know. I'm just saying, I saw that on the internet. I was like, yeah, right on. He is fucking dumb. But
I love how you said right on. Let me see you fling from a building.
I've done it. I've jumped out of the Rockefeller tree several times.
Okay.
With Art Star when we were doing our pro wrestling gig as the Rock and Roll Express. Right. All right. No, but when he sees the owl somebody online I saw said that owl means more than you think. And then the owl later takes the miniaturized sweatpants guys. But they said the owl is supposed to be something. I didn't click on the article, but I didn't know if you guys had heard any of the nerd stuff. The owl is supposed to be something else. Stump the nerds.
Yeah. I'm not sure. But a lot of nerd journalism is all about finding one thing and saying, ooh, what does this mean?
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
Sometimes it's nothing. They just need to fill their clickbait article quota for the day.
Right.
No, what this is it is going to be a mashup of MCU and Harry Potter. That's what's happening here. It's Harry Potter. It's one of the owls from Hogwarts coming to retrieve the track.
Alternate timeline.
Or experiments. Yep, that's the tea.
We're going to get Ron Weasley versus Dormammu.
Well,
Yep.
You heard it first here. Harry Potter is going to show up in Doctor Strange too.
Yep.
Aren't all owls assholes?
According to that one Onion article thing, is owls are assholes, page 35, and that was the whole thing.
Or maybe it's the owl from that Tootsie Pop commercial.
That's probably it. It's
owl from the Stone.
Well, anyway,
there's a DC character, Dr. Midnight, that has a pet owl.
Owlman?
But is there an Owlman?
Owlman is the alternate reality Batman, who was part of the crime syndicate. But that's DC stuff. I can't offhand think of any Marvel characters that deal with owls.
Okay, so
but the owls is a standard mystical kind of thing, so it could be, I don't know, Agatha Harkness or something.
Right.
Well, it could be Agatha could be. Okay. Well, anyway, the whole ending.
Oh, there
battle.
is a supervillain in Marvel called the Owl. So.
Oh yeah, the Owl is a Kingpin competitor. I forgot about the Owl. He's ridiculous. He's got comic book Wolverine hair, weird green outfit.
He looks like a Wolverine who has had no sun for 10,000 years.
And likes to wear ruffled shirts.
If he's taking the sweatsuit guys off to save them. If he's a Kingpin competitor,
not to save them. Yeah. If he's the competitor, he's not here to save the tracks.
Or maybe he's taking over the sweatsuit mafia. These are my mafia guys.
I don't know why you keep saying sweatsuit.
Oh, tracksuit. Yeah.
Or that's just to have an owl happen to be in a tree, and
you never know. I'm sticking by my Harry Potter theory. So.
Okay, we're gonna keep these theories. We're gonna write them down. We're gonna print them. But that's pretty much the end. After that, all that. But it was all really great fight scenes. It was like the last 40 minutes of the last episode. Yes. What do we forget?
We're not talking about the most dramatic part of the end. That's also very subtle. That also, I think, makes Kate a true hero and do what's right, is the arrest of her mom.
Yes, yeah, we kind of alluded to that when she was going bad. And I was picturing that, but
that's a transitional moment. That's the difference between because he says to her before they go into battle, I need you to know that this comes with sacrifice.
Yeah.
It's messy. It's not great. And I need to know you're ready.
Okay.
And the moment when her mom is like, we can go back to normal. And she was like, ma'am, murder.
Because her mom just saved her too.
Mobbing.
Just crashed into.
Well, she came out she pulled out of her business with Kingpin for her daughter, right?
Yeah.
But before she did all this, she legit murdered someone.
Yeah.
Legit framed and laundered money. She did these crimes.
Yeah.
And she probably ran into Kingpin more for herself than anybody else as well, because she had to get out from under him.
Right.
Yeah.
And then that's a great moment. That's the difference between Kate Bishop at the beginning of the series and the end of the series, when she says, you couldn't handle it without money, or you couldn't handle life.
Yep. That's what her mom says. You don't know how to live life without you. Basically, in the beginning, she told her, you need this. You need this lifestyle, right? Yeah. And at the end, that is justice is right. You have to go to jail. And she doesn't do it in an angry way. She's just like, I love you, Mom.
Yeah. And she said, and you can't say what I can handle. How do you know what I can't handle or whatever?
Well, and I think she spends a lot of time gaslighting her daughter about you're not a superhero, right? You know you can't.
Yeah.
You. When the truth is, She been out here in these streets.
That's my favorite thing. That's my favorite TBJ line. Out here in these streets is my favorite TBJ.
Listen, she has been.
Yeah,
and
she has been. You're right.
And she's surviving alongside a whole grown man Avenger. Yeah. And mom's like, you can't do this. And even after she knows that they're connected, the mom still is gaslighting her like, you're not a hero. You need to know you're not a hero. Like, you're not a hero. And at the end, number one, she's a hero. And then she is also going to err on the side of what's right. And see you later, Mom.
Yeah. Yeah, she's badass and funny, and Kate Bishop. Yeah, I love. Yeah, it was great. It's amazing how good all this Marvel shit is. Like,
and also just at the end when they're debating what her superhero name's going to be, that's kind of like an ongoing thing from the comics. Was like they didn't really. Like Lady Hawkeye or Lady Hawk or whatever,
Hawk Chop or whatever was the last
something like that. They do like at the time it's like you couldn't like Hawkeye was still active, so you couldn't just be Hawkeye, which is I guess what they kind of settled on, and they're kind of settling on it in the comics as well, I believe. But there was a while where people kept insisting since Hawkeye and Mockingbird were sort of an iconic couple in the books. Like she should, and she wore initially. Kate Bishop wore a mask that looked a lot like Mockingbird's.
Oh,
so her original costume. So they, she was fighting that people like some. I think one of the other Young Avengers was like, you should call yourself Hawkingbird, and she was like, no,
that's fucking dumb.
That's dumb. I'm not going to call myself Hawkingbird.
All right, so I want to look to Art Star for because he's always the guy on top of this. Like, what's next? Is there a season 2 Art Star? Do they say?
We don't know yet.
We don't know.
Only thing we don't know yet, but then I feel like they left it open just because it wasn't called the series finale. They called it the season finale of Hawkeye.
Okay.
That's all I know.
Did they say season finale for like Falcon and Winter Soldier as well?
Yeah, it's like, what about the other ones? Do we know Falcon Winter Soldier is coming back?
Don't we know Falcon and Winter Soldier is?
We don't know, right? Or we do?
We know Loki is.
Loki is.
We know Loki.
WandaVision.
I don't think Wanda's coming back. Yeah.
Wanda is the series finale.
Okay,
but we know What If and Loki seasons.
Yeah, that's like What If. But Falcon Winter Soldier, like I think, like WandaVision and Falcon Winter Soldier are telling specific transitional stories.
Yeah,
that they don't really warrant a season 2. I don't think, but well, depending on what they do with the movies. But Loki definitely needs a season 2, and this feels like it's definitely set up for a continuation.
Oh gosh, those two, it just needs to be those Yelena and Kate.
Mm-hmm. But that's also interesting because in Falcon Winter Soldier, we saw Julia Louis-Dreyfus setting up her evil Captain America with U.S. Agent, and then at the end of the Black Widow movie, she did this. She pit Yelena against Clit in the first place. Oh, so in the post credits tag,
it's something I don't think they addressed in this season, just because it was like, we're led to believe that Elena hired Yelena. Did I say Elena or Yelena?
Yelena.
I said Elena, but I did say Elena first, right?
You're saying Elaine from Seinfeld.
Julia,
Countess
Eleanor.
Valentina, whatever.
So Eleanor, like we're led to believe in this, that Eleanor hired Yelena, but then we see at the end where Val gave her the dossier to go after her. So like, does Eleanor and Val have something to do with each other?
Or does Kingpin have something to do with Val?
Yeah, we never know with the Kingpin connection.
And that's like one of the things.
The Kingpin connection could be them. I guess if she is connected to her, it could be like him being the one who creates the Dark Avengers, a la Osborn in the comic book series. Like you have two megalomaniac boss type people, creating their own set of like Avengers. So maybe that could be a way they tie Kingpin and Val, which would then also maybe have the reason why Kate's mom hired Yelena to kill Clint. So it seems like a lot if you really try to break it down, just because it was one of those unanswered questions in this series. Especially when Yelena.
Seems like there's a lot they could keep going with maybe with all this. Because wait, and then we got to talk about the post-credit scene, which is the best post-credit scene there's ever been.
Is
we
it
get
the best,
full a whole musical number from the musical Rogers the Musical, which I really feel like is just as good as any musical I've actually seen.
This is from a guy who does not enjoy musicals.
Sir, no.
It's just as good. It's the same. I can't tell the difference. The singing was good. They actually used musical people. The one guy's from Rent, right? These are real known people, right? TJ? Yeah. So the singing was good. You can't say the singing was bad. What was the composing was bad? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying I'm just saying no. So
I want this greenlit. I want this to be a real musical.
I think they did a good job of making it very Broadway-esque, right? Like that was great. I think they were smart that they have actual performers because that's a skill set. Yeah. But man,
it's like if you know what they're adapting and then see that adaptation, you're like, that's where like the big block of cheese is like, this is just cheese. This is so damn cheesy, but it's still a lot of fun because I mean that initial Avengers movie is still, I think, the most fun for a nerd just to watch that whole big sequence. Like this is what every nerd pre-MCU was like, oh, get the Avengers, get the whole super team together. It's gonna be awesome. We're fighting aliens. That's what it's supposed to be. Yay! That was like the crowning achievement of we got to the promised land, nerds. Here we go. And then everything after that has been gravy.
I feel like it's just sort of a commentary too on how like what we as a society do with everything. Like this aliens have invaded and we turn into a musical. Like that's what we do.
How do you get back to normal? I mean, you can get
there's a 9/11 musical. There actually is a 9/11 musical, Come From Away.
So that's
Now I will say, as someone who lives in the world of theater, that theater is a great place for conversations to happen and to work and process through things.
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see why someone thought, hey, if we make a show about this. Now, I would not have made that story cheesy as they did in this musical, but there's definitely space for musicals to tell a story about an event. Like Andy just said, we see that. Mm-hmm. It's tragic, but most of them let you process it through it beautifully. This was just hella corny.
I think this, if Rogers of the Musical was a full production, this would have been like the climax of Act 1, and then Act 2 takes us through Endgame. It's like
depending on when it was written,
like Into the Woods is like the second act is a lot darker than the first act. Yeah. So I would imagine like the first act is bright, exciting action, and then the second act is holy shit, Thanos.
Can I say, as a fan of theater, as soon as old dude started singing, I was like, yo, is that Roger from Rent? Which is Pascal, the original Roger, who's also the Roger from Rent in the movie. But
so who else to play Roger the Musical?
Yeah, but my theater brain was like, is that Adam? I didn't even call him Adam Pascal. I was like, I know this face. This is real Broadway. But did anyone know? I know Art noted the extra Avenger in that musical that was not actually
Ant-Man.
Yeah, in that first battle. I'm sure Art has tunneled, researched the webs, and has he showed up in that last scene. I know you do. Look at you. I know you do.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Tell us what the interwebs are saying, Art.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
As far as anyone knows, he was there. He was just real tiny.
That's true.
Would have caught that. I mean, we watched that already. I think we would have caught it.
Well, have.
Clint gave him a shout out. He said, "Well, I have to ask Scott." So, he was there somewhere. Maybe Scott had it. I don't know.
Do we even know if Ant-Man's secret identity is public? I mean, does everyone know who Ant-Man is? I'd have to watch that musical number again to see if they said his real name.
Or we'll have to watch Ant-Man when it comes out.
We will watch Ant-Man.
All right. Well, with that, we're gonna run out of time because we got to get back to writing the Art Star musical. The second
the
act
Art Star and Joe musical, which is strangely sensual, which is
it's very
oddly sensual.
Very sexual.
Right. Oddly sensual. It concerns me, but
we would find out the sexual exploits of Artemis Prime.
It was very softcore, apparently.
Yeah, it's very well. There's some hardcore, but we're gonna have to tone it down for the censors.
That's what she said.
But that's all the time we got. Thanks, nerds, and we'll be back
soon.
We'll be back with Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which we all are working on, trying to find the time to record it.
We're gonna get the time.
Long time.
Yeah. The 2022 should slow down, and I should be able to have a moment to breathe more often.
Hopefully,
as opposed to just cramming together a podcast during our lunch hour.
Anybody want to say anything about Hawkeye before we go?
Hawkeye's cool. In the comic books, Hawkeye leads a team of villains turned heroes called the Thunderbolts at one point. So that would be an interesting thing. I've heard some talk about people trying to get a Thunderbolts thing going with Winter Soldier as well, because he would be a good leader for a team of villains turned heroes. Although Baron Zemo from the Falcon Winter Soldier movie was the originator of the whole concept. So
Falcon Winter Soldier show, right?
Yeah. And,
Art Star, what do you guys say? Oh, sorry.
I just want also just a little bit of a nerd dribble it. I want to make that a thing. Nerd dribble it. Wendy, the black chick in this show. Her name is in the comics is Bombshell, and she is somewhat of a villainous type. But like in this show, she was a part of the Hawkeye team and helping them out a lot.
She was a LARPer, right?
The
police.
Yeah, she's the one that didn't want to give up the bag. She's like, my wife embroidered it. It says Bombshell.
Yeah, she's an actual comic book character, and she has something to do with like Heroes for Hire and Misty Knight, who also has something to do with Daredevil, which also kind of ties it into the whole Kingpin thing. 6 degrees Bombshell.
Damn. And like we know, they mentioned Greer in the first episode, and the only human being named Greer anywhere in the universe is Tigra from the comic books, so that could happen. And I like the idea that if Kingpin winds up blinded, that gives a whole new spin on his relationship with Daredevil, who is a blind superhero.
Who also, spoiler alert, is now in the MCU. Little Marvel drip.
Yep, we saw that. Well,
that's in Spider-Man, right?
Right. He's got a cameo
that I won't see until 2027. At the rate
we won't spoil it for you. It's beautiful, but we won't spoil it for you.
I can't wait.
Beautiful.
I can't wait. Anyway, thank you, nerds.
Nerd up.
Peace out.
Nerd up. Why is that not our catchphrase?
Woman up.
Nerd up.
Nerd up. I'm pretty ladies around the world.
No.
Nerd up. TBJ, you won't say nerd up?
No.
Excelsior is out. Nerd up is out.
I just want to say goodbye. See you later, nerds. Later, nerds. That's what I was saying.
Later, nerds.
Later, nerds.
You heard, nerds.
Still more incarceration of my kinsmen by the prisons and people thinking this election to end racism. Proud of a pessimism, glad to see Obama, but don't expect me not to speak out when I still see problems.
The Nerd School Podcast.
Nerd School is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network, powered by Ortho Carolina. Now offering video visits, so you can take control of your orthopedic care from the comfort of your home. Schedule online at orthocarolina.com. Ortho Carolina, you improved.
Listen, people can make fun of me for my holiday movies all we want to, but I'm like, are you alive? Did I fuss at you today? Did I yell about anything? All right, then. You're welcome. You better thank Hallmark for keeping me safe.